Hello everyone and welcome to today's One Card Wonder Wednesday video, October 17th, 2018. I hope you all are having a good day. I am. It's been a little busy, so that's why I'm getting late getting my video going. Let me just see if it's pulling up on my page here. There we go, got it. I can keep track and make sure you all can see what I'm doing. Okay, so today I made a card with a little saying, "Here's to a Christmas filled with comfort and good cheer." And I used the So Santa set, which gave me this little Santa with his little spoons and his plate of cookies. And I used the Homemade Kindness set, which gives us the little kitchen scene. And these are the two sets that I've used, and I think they're both adorable, and I like the way this little Santa in the So Santa set coordinates with the Homemade Kindness set. So the first thing I want to show you is that I have some texture on here because I used some embossing paste. Hi Kelly. I used some embossing paste on it, and I'm going to show you how to do that. It's a simple procedure that you can do with any kind of card that you're making, but it gives it just a little bit of texture and it doesn't take a long time to dry. So the first thing we're going to do is stamp our images before we add the texture to the card. So I've got the little stove and I'm going to use the Memento ink, and I'm just going to ink that stamp up. And then I'm going to set it off just a little bit to the right of my cardstock, which is 4 inches by 5 inches, because I didn't need it super long because I'm going to cut off around the bottom of the stove because we don't need that whole image. And then I want to do the little shelf that has the pan and the spatula and the oven mitt. I'm just going to do that on the left side of the card. And so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly do the cutout. My Memento left a nice mark for us. I'm just going to cut out the bottom here where the floor, there's a small little floor line on that stamp, and I'm just going to cut out where that floor line is and around these legs. Because once that's cut out, then we can do the embossing paste. That way I don't get embossing paste on my fingers while I'm trying to cut this out, because I don't want to ruin that little brick pattern once I get it on there. But once it's dry, it'll be fine. I didn't want to cut while it was still wet. So once I get around this, we'll be good to go with the embossing paste. If you haven't used the embossing paste before, the embossing paste that Stampin' Up! Sells comes in a small little canister with a screw-on lid. Now you have to be careful because eventually it's going to dry out. So if you buy it and you don't use it for 5 months, it may be dried out when you open it. So if it's something you're going to use, I personally have had mine for a couple of months and mine's fine, but some people have problems with it. So I don't know if it's the climate they're living in or if the lid was open partially or whatever. So the mask that I'm going to use comes from the Pattern Party set of decorative masks, which has 4 different masks in it. This is the brick wall one. And I'm just going to lay that over top of, I'm going to do it right at the bottom of the floor line so that way I can keep as much on that paper as possible. And then you just open up your embossing paste and you can see it's just it kind of looks like glue, like the old paste that we had when we were in kindergarten, if you're my age. So you just get some on your palette knives, which we sell this set of 3 and you get different sizes, but I like to use this small one. And you're just going to run it over around your image where you want the wall to be on your card. And you might get some bricks that are full bricks. You can make them so they're like half bricks. And you just basically fill it in. So you're just going to squish it into the mask and then just kind of scrape over it. Just being careful not to go over your stamped image because you don't want your brick wall over top of your stove or your little shelf that's on here. And then just scrape off as much as you can scrape off, because we can put that back in the embossing paste. Hi Ange, how are you? And then I just scrape that back off on the edge of the canister and close it up tight, and I use a baby wipe to clean that off. And now when I'm all done, I'll take this and put it in show you what the image looks like up close. So hopefully you can see that brick wall that we have on there now. And I believe you can take the embossing paste and you can mix it with the re-inkers and dye it different colors. I'm just gonna wipe off the top of this mask for now with a baby wipe, but I'll use some dish soap and hot water or warm water to wash it off later. But as long as you get most of it off to begin with, it should be fine and it won't get all dried and nasty on there. So I'm just gonna scoop that up, being careful not to get the embossing paste all over my fingers. And I'm just gonna I'm gonna set that aside and let that dry, and I'm gonna stamp the little Santa real quick. We'll get him stamped and get him colored, and then we can color in the other images. Now, obviously I chose the little Santa that is the cooking Santa, because he's got the little cookies and the block's not quite big enough. The cookies and the little spatula and spoon in his hand. And I'm just gonna stamp him because we are gonna have to fussy cut him out as well because there is no die for him. But it doesn't take that long to fussy cut him out. I'm pretty quick with my fussy cutting because I do it quite often. And so I wanna color him in with, I'm gonna use the real red. Obviously, because he's Santa, he needs real red. I'm just gonna quickly color his jacket. Which it doesn't take long. These blends are really, makes coloring really fast. I really enjoy using them. We'll get the little holly berry, get his legs. Now the nice thing about the embossing paste too is you could use it like on his beard and maybe on his coat if you wanted to give it just a little bit of texture. I'm not gonna do that today, but it's something you can do. Fill in the holly leaves using the old olive. And I think I'll put old olive stripes on his. So he has a green and white striped apron. On the sample card that I showed you, I used shaded spruce for this Santa, but I'm gonna go with the old olive for this one. And then I just need the basic black to get his boots colored in. Have any of you started making your cards yet for Christmas? I think this might be one of my Christmas cards this year, so I'm hoping anyway. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to go ahead and make his platter using the pool party marker, just because it's gonna coordinate with what is on the card. And I'm going to use the ivory stamp to color in his skin and his hands, you know, his face and his hands, just so they're not left plain white. And then I may take the Wink of Stella and go over his beard and his hat maybe and whatnot. I will use the crumb cake and I'll color in the spatula and the spoon. And you can do them in any colors that you want. You could color over them with the shimmer paint or use the Wink of Stella to give them a little bit of sparkle. And I'm gonna use the Wink of Stella if I can find where I put it when I used it last. And there it is. Just give it a little bit of sparkle over his hat and over those utensils, because he's Santa, he's gotta have fancy utensils. And I will go ahead and use the crumb cake and I'm gonna color in his cookies as well, because I'm just gonna say they're gingerbread. Maybe I'll make them a little bit darker, but I think that should go over them a couple of times with the dark crumb cake color. All right, and then I'll just go ahead and quickly cut him out. Now, like I said, he's pretty easy to cut out. There's not a lot of angles and things that you have to go. My tip with fussy cutting is move your paper, not your scissors. So I'm at the end here with my scissors and I'm just gonna, you can see how the paper will pivot. Just pivot it around to go around your little Santa guy. And I don't need the ground underneath him. I'm just going to cut around his legs. You only move your scissors once you get to a straight shot, or, you know, you're at the very end of your scissors. You've moved them all the way. But normally if you just move your paper, it's quite easy to do the fussy cutting. If you try to move your scissors too much, you end up snipping off what you don't want to snip off, and you end up with little jagged pieces. So it's definitely easier to move the paper versus trying to move your scissors when you're fussy cutting around something. So that's my tip for the day. Move your paper, not your scissors. And I'm sorry if I hope I didn't take it out of the range of the camera there. Trying not to. And then just going around his hat is pretty easy because it's just a couple little curves. And you don't have to go all the way in like this around the cookies if you don't want to. You could have just went straight across and just curved it back down, but I went ahead and went all the way in. Okay, so now that he's cut out, we'll go ahead and we'll quickly color in this image. And this image doesn't really take too long. I used the light pool party and the dark pool party. With the dark pool party, I just did the outlines, like this edge here, and just around the outlines, edges of the doors, basically, is what I did with the dark pool party. And then I just filled in the rest of, it's okay if it bleeds a little bit, just because, I mean, that's what the alcohol marker is going to do. But it's all going to be blended in together, and it'll just give that a little bit of definition around those edges. And the same thing, I colored in the legs actually with the dark, I believe. And then I just went around the edge, the lines, the outline of everything with the dark. And then it's all, once you color it in, it's just all gonna flow together anyway. So we're done with the dark. I'll just go ahead and use the light. We'll use the brush tip. We're just going to color in this entire little stove. Obviously, making sure you don't get the towels and the knobs, because we're going to go over those with different colors. And if you do accidentally go over them, it's not that big of a deal as long as you try to color over it with a darker color. I mean, you can do a lighter color and sometimes it'll change it a little bit, but it won't change it completely. Like if this was a really dark color to start with, red, you're not going to be able to go over it with pool party and make it pool party. That's just not going to happen. But with this being a lighter color, if we needed to go over it, we could use something darker to go over it and it would be just fine. Now, once you have that colored in, I just use the Old Olive, the light Old Olive, and I went over and I gave my little towel some stripes, just because I felt he needed some stripes. And a little bit of Old Olive color. And I did the same thing with this oven mitt. I gave it some little Old Olive stripes. And you could just color it in solid, but I just felt the need to do the stripes. And I went ahead and colored in the little pie tin with the Old Olive as well. I'm going to take the Real Red, and we're going to go ahead and do the coffee pot or the teapot or the water kettle, whatever you want to call it, that's on the stove. I'm going to color that in red, and then I'll go back and get my Old Olive stripe in the middle in just a minute. And then I went ahead and did these long handles that are on the stove with the Real Red in the dark as well, and the little snowflake dots on the towel and the little stripe. And I did the utensils in red just because why not? It's fun. It's Santa's kitchen. Maybe he's got some red utensils. And then back to that pot holder, and I did the little stars on that as well. And then the lids of his canisters that are red, and the canisters I just left white. And the same with this little pot over here. I just gave it a little red lid and handle. And then I went ahead and used the light smoky slate to color in the pots. And these lids, or not lids, these knobs. And I believe after that, the only thing left to color would be the stovepipe coming from the back of the stove. And it's pretty quick getting all of that colored in. It doesn't take too long. I mean, if you were gonna make 10 or 15 of these cards, I would just do all the Stampin' first, do all the embossing, paste, you know, go back, do it in steps, and go back and color it in, and, you know, so on and so forth, because it would just go quicker. And then actually, I think I will use the smoky slate for this little pan, this little cookie sheet that's on the stove as well, and then we'll fill in the cookies with the crumb cake color. We'll just pretend those are some more of Santa's cookies, like what that he has on his tray. We'll fill our shelf in too, because I didn't get my shelf. So there, that's basically the only color. You know, it takes a few minutes to do it, but you get the coloring done and you're good to go. So I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to get my real red card base, which this is 11 inches by 4 1/4 wide. Make sure I get a good crease, start in the middle, work my way out to the edges. And then I've cut a piece that is 2 inches by 4 1/4 inches, and this is, or by 4 inches, sorry. And this is a piece of the Wood Textures Designer Series paper, and that's going to be the floor in Santa's kitchen. So I'm just going to put some snail adhesive on that. Make sure the sides stay down. And that's the first part that I'm going to adhere to the front of the card, because I want to make sure that when I lay this piece down, I'm definitely where I want to be, you know, that I have the flooring in the right space. So now I'm just going to take this piece and flip it over. That embossing paste is dry now. And I'm just going to do the snail adhesive on it. And I'm going to get that centered and set on the card the way I want it, and just press it down. And now, like I said, that embossing paste is dry already. It doesn't take long to dry. It's a, you know, a very thin layer. Santa's going to get a couple of dimensionals on the back, because he's going to stand out a little bit on this card, because he's standing out in his kitchen showing us everything that he baked for Christmas. There he is. He's so adorable. And then I have a piece of Pool Party that's almost an inch wide. It's at 7/8 of an inch wide by 4 inches long. And I'm going to trim that in the triple banner punch. And after I've done that, I'm going to use some real red ink, and I'm going to ink up the sentiment. And the sentiment says, here's your Christmas filled with, here's to a Christmas filled with good cheer and with comfort and good cheer. I can't even say it right today. Now my real red is pretty juicy, so I hope I don't smear this when I put it on here, but it should be all right. Oh, it's a little crooked. We're going to flip it over. I'm going to have to stand up to make sure I get this the right way. There we go, much better. And then I took a piece of the galvanized paper, which is in the holiday catalog as well. And this piece started out at 1 inch wide by 4 1/2 inches wide. 4 1/2 inches long, sorry. So it's just a little bit longer than the Pool Party piece. And I must have not cut my Pool Party piece the proper length, because I need to trim a little bit off from that. Anyway, that's just going to hook onto that using the snail adhesive. Then we'll put a couple of dimensionals on the back of that. I usually do about 3 if the banner is a little bit longer like this. And that's just going to go right across the top. It's going to cover up the piece of the stovepipe, so it just looks like the stovepipe's going right into the ceiling. And there you have it. There's this week's One Card Wonder Wednesday card. And like I said, in these cards, I did color Santa a little bit different on each one, but The card is basically the same, using the embossing technique to get that texture on your card. Makes a beautiful impression on whoever receives this card in the mail. So I hope you enjoyed today's card and have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next week. Bye.